I want to see the evidence.
Exactly.
And I didn't believe when the weapons of mass destruction were announced by Colin Powell and the president back then. And I was right. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Susan,
Yes.
today is another week of outrageous happenings, and I don't know what to start with. I know you're most upset about Iran and the bombing that continues despite the alleged ceasefire, despite the president of the United States saying fuck on the White House lawn, despite the president saying yes, no, yes, ceasefire, yes, no. I mean, this is all insane. What do you think?
It's been crazy. It's just been, I mean, first of all, to see the president of the United States on the White House lawn, so angry and so out of control and using the F word.
And I said the actual word, guys, because CNN
Yeah,
did play the actual word
right,
because it was the president speaking it. And I am apologizing to Barb McQuaid because Barb is our
right,
censor on Sisters-in-Law. She does not allow us to say those
right,
things.
right. Um, it was just, it's been crazy. And then the ceasefire was on, he announced the ceasefire. And with Donald Trump, you really take everything with a grain of salt anyway. Were we supposed to believe it? And Iran and Israel were not confirming it for a long time. And
But they
then,
have
but
confirmed
they
it. They
have
did say it
confirmed
was on.
it.
And
They
so
have
there you
confirmed.
are. But then they were bombing each other again.
And
So
actually, one of the bombs actually hit an apartment building in Beersheba in Israel. 4 people were killed, including a woman who was a Holocaust survivor. So, I mean,
Brisby's upset about that in case you can't hear. He's
hear him.
joining us.
Um, it was just crazy. It really
It
was.
was. And what's even crazier is the people who are making these decisions. When I saw his announcement and he is surrounded by Hegseth, Marco Rubio, not surrounded by Tulsi Gabbard, who he's now cut out, and not surrounded by his 22-year-old head of cybersecurity. What's his title exactly?
Thomas Fugate, the anti-terror chief, who's
This is
22
who
years old.
anti-terror is. And right now we are facing, are we not, possible sleeper cells about to attack us
Right,
because we bombed without congressional approval, which is, of course, in the Constitution that they have war power and that they have to approve it. But no, he went and did it, and you can't undo what he did.
right.
The first dropping of this mega bomb, and also claiming that we obliterated Iran's nuclear capacity. There is not a shred of evidence of that. I hope it's true, but there is no evidence of that.
Right.
And, you remember I have Pentagon experience, and I have looked at surveillance photographs. I was actually sent to Korea to review threats of North Korean attacking South Korea at the time, and looked at photographs, and I know how to look at them, and there are none to look at.
Right.
We aren't seeing any devastation. I want to see the evidence. And
Exactly.
I
And
didn't believe when the weapons of mass destruction were announced by Colin Powell and the president back then, and I was right. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
right. When you look at the big picture, that he is surrounded by people who are unqualified. You know, he picks a Fox News host for Secretary of Defense. You know, he doesn't take intelligence briefings. He's sort of bragged about that. I mean, they've talked about that. That's
And
what's
they're
so
trying to
scary.
make
And
them like TV programs so that he might pay attention. They're trying to make them look like a Fox newscast.
well, it's like it's all like done for central casting, as if the United States is a little reality TV show. It's very scary.
So, what should people be doing? What should our listeners do about whether they can believe any of the stuff that's coming out of the White House, whether they can do any action to encourage Democrats and Republicans to pass the war powers resolution that is pending? What can people do?
I mean, I think people always say you can call your congressman, you know, get on the phone to the White House. You can do that, but also, you know, be careful where you get your news from. I mean, social media is not necessarily, you know, you don't want to get it from Facebook. The I would say look at a variety of news. You
Yes,
know,
that's a
the
very good
Washington
point.
Post, the New York Times, Atlantic is really good. ProPublica does great work. Um, and just you have to have a variety of news,
Yeah.
and then kind of weigh it, because nobody really knows where we're at. Everybody, it's everything is up in the air.
So, folks, don't be angry, be informed, and be involved. That's the best I can say.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Anne Applebaum just said too that she's the one who's so well versed in authoritarianism, and she claims Trump is really not interested in the Middle East or Israel, or even the Americans. He's all about winning, and he's all about looking good, and it's all what's good for Trump, and that to me is the most frightening thing.
So, Susan, the thing that's really bothering me, well, I mean, many things are bothering me, but one of the things that isn't getting appropriate attention is the Supreme Court just said that Donald Trump could continue to deport immigrants to third countries. And by that, I mean countries that they have no connection to. It's not their home country. It's not the country they came to America from. It's not a country they passed through. And these are countries like South Sudan that are dangerous. South Sudan is on a list that Americans should not visit because it's a war-torn, dangerous place to be.
Right.
And one of the arguments they made in court was that it was dangerous for their employees, for federal employees, to be guarding immigrants currently housed in Djibouti, and that therefore they should be allowed to send them on where they would be in the hands of the South Sudanese government, which is known for torture and which these people have no connection to. Now, it's dangerous for them to be there, but it's not dangerous for the immigrants when international law says you cannot send someone where they will be tortured, where they will be endangered. And that's what we're doing. This is so against our rules. And I just want to say one other thing,
Yep.
which is that Sonia Sotomayor
Yeah.
wrote the most passionate, well reasoned dissent. It's 19 pages and worth reading every sentence. And it answers a one paragraph, unreasoned opinion by the majority that does not give one single reason for why they were allowing the pause in the ban of deporting people to third countries. Not one single, they don't even make a pretense of being rational about this. They don't even make a pretense that they had a reason that supports them doing this. And Sonia Sotomayor was brilliant in her answer.
Right. I think she said being deprived of the right not to be deported to a country likely to torture or kill you plainly counts. And then she said, and plaintiffs have a right to be heard. But Jill, explain, because this isn't a final decision. It still is going to go through more appeals. Can you explain what the process is?
Yes, it isn't, and yet it is. It's final in the sense that, once the people in Djibouti are sent to South Sudan, they're in South Sudan, and Donald Trump's going to say, well, I can't do anything about it. They're in control of someone else.
Yeah.
So that's whoops, hold on, my earphones are falling out. That's one of the first dangers. It is only a ban on a temporary restraining order, a temporary injunction, and it will get appealed to the Court of Appeals and then ultimately back to the Supreme Court. But because the Supreme Court is weighed in, it suggests to the lower courts that maybe there's a real reason that the government will win, even though I think there's absolutely no reason. And Sonia Sotomayor, I mean, someone who's writing the brief going forward, ought to just use all of the arguments she made. She said, there was no due process. That's guaranteed. It must happen. There was no due process.
So in the meantime, before it's heard again in an appeals court, people can be sent places,
yes,
and get stuck there.
And
basically.
People who are in America right now can be deported to wherever the government says. And that's in direct contradiction of our immigration laws and of international law. They have to be sent, if there is a deportation order, it has to be that they get to go to the country that the immigration court said they are going to,
Right.
usually their home country. But if they made a credible case that they would be tortured in their home country or punished in their home country, then they have a choice of another country. It could be the country they pass through to get to America, or it could be a country where they have relatives. They get a choice. That's not what's happening here. And the government is saying, well, we gave them the first hearing, and then we decided we'd send them somewhere else, but they don't get a second hearing. That doesn't make sense to anybody, does it? Does that make sense to you as
No,
a non-lawyer? It doesn't make sense to me as a lawyer.
no.
And so it's really a danger that the government is taking on. And it should concern everyone. I know that immigration is not the top issue in a country that is reeling from so much else.
Actually, Jill, if you look at local news, they're covering this whole immigration thing so much better, I think, than the national news. You get the individual stories of a landscaper who's worked for a family for years getting yanked out. You know, one was left with the mower running, and they took him away and they tackled him. We keep hearing stories. I think last night Rachel Maddow spoke about a young mother who was taken away, and the husband is bringing it. She just had a baby and she's still nursing. The husband is trying to get the baby there to breastfeed. I mean, the
And I
the
just
the
saw an
cruelty is
Instagram of a woman who intervened when people dressed as ICE agents, I don't know if they were, but because they were masked and they didn't have badges,
right.
a woman intervened on behalf of a car wash employee and actually scared them off.
Yeah,
They left. They did
yeah.
not. She said, "You're kidnapping him. Prove to me that you're ICE. I don't see your. Show me your badge." And the guy was pointing. She said, "That's not a badge. I don't know that you're ICE. Get out of here." She
Right.
she used the F word too. Seems
They
to be
showed
big these
another.
days.
They showed another man last night who was taken away, who has three sons in the American Marines. You know, and these are people who have been here for years and years and worked hard and made a living and raised their children, and his three boys are in the Marines, and now he's taken away. So the cruelty and it's mind-boggling.
And I just discovered a website for you to volunteer to help immigrants and others. And I'm going to post that on my social media so that people can do more than complain about this, but can get involved to help, because I think that'll make us all better Americans and better patriots. And I hope that everyone will, again, be informed and involved and do the right thing.